Welcome to the Real Women, Real Business podcast, where we believe you don't have to choose between doing what you love and building something truly successful. Each episode, we cut through the noise to show you exactly where your energy should go, how to eliminate what's keeping you stuck, and most importantly, how to tell the difference between what's actually making you money and what's just keeping you busy. Around here, we're all about helping you to work smarter, build stronger, and dream bigger. You've already built something amazing, but if it feels like you're stuck in a cycle of back to back calls, half finished launches, and late nights just trying to catch up, you're not alone. Most women start their businesses with passion and drive, but somewhere along the way, they start settling for good enough. They want more, but worry it will cost them too much. And let's be honest, we spend so much time thinking about how to help others, we start feeling guilty for wanting to build real wealth or prioritize our own goals. That's exactly why I created the Real Women, Real Business Mastery Program to help ambitious women like you stop settling for just enough and start building a business that's truly aligned, where passion, profits, and progress work together, because making more doesn't mean sacrificing more. It means building smarter with the right support and the right strategies. If you're ready for sustainable success in a business you actually love running, book your free coaching assessment at aboutShaunaLynn.com/coachmate. Let's explore what's possible together. Hello and welcome to the Real Women, Real Business podcast. I am your host, Shauna Lynn Simon, and today's guest is Shannyn Schroeder. She is the founder of F-Bomb Coach. Don't worry, we're going to explain what that F really means. It's EF, Bomb Coach, and Shannyn helps neurodivergent women better understand executive function, hint, hint, and build supportive systems that make business and life feel more manageable. She's got a background in executive function coaching, special education, and years of real-world business experience. She blends practical tools with self-acceptance to help women to stop blaming themselves and start working with their brains instead of against them. And so in this conversation, we're going to be talking about ADHD, executive function, and why business can feel so much harder than it needs to when the advice you've been given was actually never built for the way that your brain works. So Shannyn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so very much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
I'm thrilled to have you because I got to say, I work with a lot of creative professionals. I would say the main listeners that are listening to this episode are creative professionals in some way. So a lot of home stagers, interior designers, photographers, artists, that sort of profession. And so I feel, in my experience, that I have worked with a lot, probably more than the average person in terms of neurodivergent clients. And I've learned a lot of things along the way, but always, this is such a great topic that really interests me, because I think there's still a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of things we don't fully understand about what it means to be neurodivergent. And especially for those who have that diagnosis, whether it was now or recently or several years ago, I think that there's a lot of misconception still as to what this means, and they don't realize that this can actually be their superpower, and instead are constantly trying to fight against where they naturally are. And like I can see you're laughing, you're nodding your head here because you're like, yes, I know. I get it, but can we make sure the rest of the world gets it today?
Yes, that is my goal in life, is to really spread the word. Absolutely. And for me, working with women, so many of the women I work with are neurodivergent, but they came to the realization, the official diagnosis, so much later in life, because let's face it, women get forgotten about. Girls are not looked at. All of the tests and things that we use to diagnose are based on boys, you know, really like white boys at that.
Yeah.
So, you know,
and it presents differently. Yeah.
yes. And it's so different. So most women, they went all the way into adulthood, and I started my business because I want to say really like during COVID is when we saw a huge spike, because everybody was sitting at home and they're scrolling TikTok, and everybody's like, hey, this is what it looks like when you have ADHD. And so then you've all these grown women who've lived forever going, huh? Wait. and they start to question things, and they get the diagnosis, and that's great. And I mean, I just saw so many women like in my life, like friends of friends, and getting the diagnosis, which is great. There's like that huge sense of relief of like, wow, that explains so much, which is then always followed by the total anger of why the heck
Mhm.
wasn't this figured out? Like, how different would my life have been for the last 30 years if someone caught this when I was, 8?
Oh,
Um,
sure.
but then there's but now what? What does this
Now
actually
what?
mean? What does this actually mean for me? And that's kind of like where I put myself, as that I am your now what person.
Well, and especially depending on where they fall in terms of, because I mean, and I don't know how far you want to get into this today, but I know there are different um, variations of how it presents and how people function. And so they may decide to go like deep dive into research mode, which I've definitely seen more than a few people do that. And other people who are just like, I don't know what it means, and they can't even wrap their head around it, and they don't have the focus to dive into it further as well, which is also why a podcast like this is so helpful to help them to understand a little bit better about how to work with it, as opposed to just trying to do all the research themselves.
Right. And I do think that that's pretty much like the two camps of people. The people who are like, oh my gosh, I need to understand all of it and figure it out. And then the people who are like, I've made it this far. Like, it's working more or less. Um, and even though like hey, it's working more or less, like that's really what I think most women have just learned to project.
Yeah. I mean, we found some coping mechanisms and
Right.
we lean into them. And that's not to say a bad thing either. Like, yes, obviously we do need to have some of those coping skills and safety tricks, so to speak, of like, things that I mean, I don't know. Does anyone else put their car keys in somewhere where like you actually absolutely have to grab this item, and so that you forget, that way I'm not going to forget to grab that particular item. I put my car keys with it. Like it's, or the post-it note right at the door as you're walking out that says, "Did you turn off the stove?" Like these are very real things that we can do, and they're not a bad thing to have. I mean, they're
Right.
quite effective, in fact.
And see, those kinds of things are like tools and strategies like that I would suggest to someone who's like, I spend 20 minutes running through my house when I am already 20 minutes late, and now I'm running around looking for my keys. And we talk about things like, having, like anchor points. Like,
Right.
you have to walk through the door, make sure it's there. Does it happen overnight? No, it takes a lot of practice and,
Sure.
things like that. But when we talk about executive function skills, we're like, it's a fancy way of just saying your adulting skills. Bottom line, that's all it is. Your time management, your organization, your planning, all of that. The things that you're expected to just know how to do as an adult. And neurotypical people will figure out those things. Like, oh, I should put my keys in a spot that's obvious and I will remember where they are every single time. Neurodivergent people don't think that way
Right.
because they've got 42 million other things all in their head at any given point, that like their filter is not as strong, and so the keys land in 15 different places, and that's why they're searching for them.
Right.
And the neurotypical people in their lives will be like, well, why can't you just put them here, or why can't you just remember where you put them? And
And
truly, yeah, it's just, if I could get rid of any one phrase for all of my people to never have to hear, why don't you just? Well, if I
yeah.
could just, I would.
And I think I do want to definitely get into that a little bit as well, of some of the negative self-talk that a lot of people have developed because of some of these things that have been said to them over the years. So they start talking down on themselves. But before we get to that, let's just define executive function. So I
Okay.
know you're talking about the tools are kind of like adulting, but what actually is executive function? And so for those also who are listening, and I mentioned your company name, can we also talk about that for a moment as well? But what
Certainly.
FBOM actually is all about.
Certainly. So executive function are those skills that you use pretty much in every facet of your life. Things like time management, task initiation, like getting started on something, especially if it's something you don't like to do. Organization, planning, prioritization, emotional regulation, working memory, cognitive flexibility, like being able to see things from other perspectives. Those are all your executive function skills. And if you are neurodivergent, it's not a guarantee that you're going to struggle with executive function skills. We just see a huge overlap, is that people who are neurodivergent, regardless of, what flavor of neurospicy you have, there's
Yeah.
a much higher um coexistence, comorbidity of executive dysfunction. And you might be the best planner in the world. Like you are super like organized in that way. You use your planner every single day. Your time management is dead on, but maybe your house is a hot mess and like that level of organization doesn't happen. So it's not like you have to struggle with all of the skills. You might be good at some and struggle with others. And so there is no hard and fast rule for any of it because that's what neurodivergence is, that every brain is truly that unique. Um, and that's what, because executive function is like my thing, um, the name for my company, F-Bomb, is because in my life, when I'm talking to adults, like an actual F-bomb, the curse word, like that is part of my natural language when I'm talking to people. So I don't filter it. When I'm in teacher mode, I filter. But yes, like I curse. And so for me, it's just a fun play on words because that is who I am. And I don't filter that self, that part of myself. Like I don't, do the makeup and the hair. Like, no, I'm sitting here in a t-shirt because this is the way I dress every day. This is the way I
Be
talk.
real.
So,
Yeah,
yes,
I
exactly.
want you to show up like, and we talked about this a little bit before I pressed record, but the name of this podcast is called the Real Women, Real Business Podcast. And if my guests weren't showing up as who they authentically are, kind of defeating the whole purpose of this, right?
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, that's where it's from. And so people know up front, like they see that name, and if it's one of those and it's not for you, that's totally cool. I get it. That I'm not your person. If you are
Right.
going to be offended by that, that's cool. There's lots of information out there. You don't have to actually talk to me.
Yep, absolutely. Yes. But nonetheless, I mean, it does play into it plays really well into something that I think is going to really resonate with those who are neurodivergent, and that is about the filtering element of things. Like you said, you can filter yourself as needed, but the preference is to not filter yourself. And a lot of neurodivergent people find themselves trying to filter themselves because they don't feel comfortable being their true selves because of those could you just type moments. And so now they've been categorized, whether by someone else or by themselves or a combination of the two, as lazy, as scattered, or just bad at certain things. I'm just bad at business. I'm just bad with numbers. I'm just bad with information. I'm just bad at remembering things. And they've got now they're continually reinforcing all of these things in their own head because that's what they've been told. So how do we help them? I mean, I'm guessing in a lot of these cases, like executive function is the actual issue. How do we help them to differentiate and break free without, of course, just making an excuse for everything too? Like there's also, there's a point where you do need to get some work done. So could you just like does need to happen to an extent?
Yes, and this is not about, making excuses or anything like that. Like for me, like one of the things that I say all the time is that if you're neurodivergent, that does not mean that you are lazy, stupid, or broken, because that is what you've probably heard for decades. I mean, if you're my age, yeah, it's been going
Yeah.
on for decades that this is the way people talk to you. Oh, well, she just can't be on time. She doesn't know how. Or, look at this house. It's such a mess. Why can't you clean it up? And that has been internalized. So even you could be the most successful CEO out in the world, and everybody can look at you as like, oh, but she's got her stuff together. But if you're neurodivergent, you are just exhausted. And part of that comes not just from the work itself, but because of the masking you have to do, that super filter that you put on to make it look like you have all of your stuff together all of the time. And while from the outside it looks that way, internally you are a storm of chaos. And you've used your coping mechanisms and you can make things happen, but that's why we see such a high level of burnout in high achieving women because they've spent so much time masking. So if you struggle with things like time management or organization, you're always kind of trying to play catch up for that. Plus, you're holding on to this entire mask of, see, I'm all put together. So, and then behind the scenes, you're scrambling. And if you're already struggling with some of those skills, it makes you tired. But now you're piling on all of these other things plus the mask to let everybody, so that nobody has to see that you're a hot mess.
I'm tired just you running through the list. Yeah.
It just is.
Seriously.
And so like that, your burnout, the chances of burnout, the levels of burnout that we see are just skyrocketing. And the more we look at who is struggling with that level of burnout, they're like, oh, but she's so good at everything. Yeah, she's so good at everything she does because she has that neurodivergent brain, which is truly brilliant and can do amazing things. But in order for her to allow that brain to do all of those things, she still has to put up this huge mask so she looks normal while she's doing all those awesome things. And that you can only do it for so long before your brain's like, you know what? I'm out.
Right. And for anyone who is not watching the video version of this, please understand that normal is in quotes here at all
Yes.
times, at all times on
Yes.
this show. That's just an automatic. The word normal is always in quotes because I think this is one of the challenges, though, is that there's advice has been standardized. And as you've mentioned, often for like men for that matter. So it's not even just that, diagnosis for neurodivergent is different, but in general, most business advice is very masculine. It's very male dominated. And it's very, one size fits all. And so now when you're a neurodivergent woman and you're like, well, I'm doing all the things people are telling me to do, but this business advice that I'm getting isn't working for me. And I've heard it from so many of my clients before. Well, I've tried time blocking, it doesn't work for me. Sure, that makes perfect sense. Like, let's not do that anymore. But there are, I know, ways that we can manage it. But what's your advice for someone when they're stepping into this and they're realizing that traditional business advice isn't working? And I can imagine that's probably, exhausting for them. So they're feeling like, I'm just going to give up on everything because I'm clearly just, again, quote, bad at business.
Yes, that's exactly it. So there's the good and the bad. So the good is you can improve your executive function skills. So that story you've been telling yourself, I'm just not organized or I'm just bad at planning. That is a moment in time right now. And like science, like the brain science behind it has shown us that yes, you can in fact teach an old dog new tricks. Absolutely. Good. You can. Neuroplasticity is real. Like you can rewire your brain. The bad side of this is that there is no easy button. Like I cannot say, here's what neurotypical business advice is. Just do this instead because you're neurodivergent. That doesn't work because that's assuming that every neurodivergent brain is going to be the same. So it takes a lot of trial and error and experimentation. And that can be exhausting, because you just really want something that will work. And so, yes, when we look at things like, the Pomodoro method, that time blocking, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, I talk about it. And can it be a useful tool? Absolutely. It works for lots of people. Yeah. Right. But you know what? For my neurodivergent people, my ADHDers out there, you know what? Your Pomodoro might not be 25 minutes. It might be 12. It might be 15. And if you own that and say, you know what? 25 isn't going to work for me, but I could do 15. Your productivity will skyrocket if that's your sweet spot. But when you try and drag it out for 25, well, at 15, your brain's done anyway, and your brain starts and you're dancing all over the place. And then you're like, well, why couldn't I get everything done? Well, because you were not treating your brain the way it gives you the signals. You've just learned to ignore those signals. So a lot of what I do is like teaching women to look at and learn those signals to start to understand what, where the struggles are, where the strengths are, and then to listen to their brain so they could find those magic tools that will actually work for them.
And I think that's probably one of the things that women especially struggle with is, we've always talked about women's intuition. We know in our gut when something feels right and when it feels off. And we have been somewhat unconsciously subdued from actually leaning into those things. And the gut feelings have been dismissed for decades, for generations. Now, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of men out there who I know they're like, listen, I'm not messing with a woman's intuition. She knows what she's talking about. If she says her gut is telling her something, I'm going to listen to her. So there are plenty of men. So I'm not saying that this is an entire world, but in general, if you like women have told, like, back it up. But my intuition tells me, or like, I feel this, and trying to lean into that and trusting ourselves when we've been taught not to trust ourselves.
Right. Because emotions.
Right. We're clearly hysterical. Let's bring the hysteria diagnosis back, shall we? Yeah. Okay, I want to dive a little bit further into this, and we're going to do that as soon as we get back from this short break.
We'll be right back after this quick message. Kaivari helps interior designers at every stage build a strong strategic support network, giving them ongoing clarity, trusted guidance, and access to the right people at the right time. Unlike directories or online groups, Kaivari uses a personalized matching process, combining detailed data, a deep dive clarity call, and a thoughtful review process to connect members with vetted coaches, trusted service providers, and aligned peer communities. With exclusive monthly education, targeted small group support, and annual rematching sessions, Kaivari becomes your affordable, evergreen layer of strategic guidance until you're ready to confidently hire deeper support. If you're ready to stop guessing and start making smarter business decisions with the right network behind you, visit kaivari.com to learn more. That's KAIVARI.com, and use promo code COACHFRIEND, that's KOACHFRIEND, to save. And welcome back to the Real Women, Real Business podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Real Women, Real Business podcast, where we've been talking with Shannyn Schroeder, and we're talking about neurodivergence and how it's actually a superpower for you. And I want to make sure that this is also coming through like really loud and clear, that there are ways of being able to, as Shannyn has said, sort of retrain your brain a little bit, rewire that neuroplasty. You can actually rewire your brain a little bit. But there's a reason why things are feeling harder because of that neurodivergence. So if someone is maybe listening to this and saying, I haven't been diagnosed, but everything you're saying is kind of tracking, like this sounds like me, what's the first step they should take if they're pre-diagnosis?
So here's the thing. I never care if someone's got the official diagnosis.
Fair.
Because for a lot of women, depending on where you are, what your healthcare situation is, like there are some women who will ask for a diagnosis, ask to be tested, and they get pushed back because, oh, well, you're 40. What difference does it make now? And so that's my approach. Like, I don't care if you have the doctor stamp of, look, you have ADHD or you are on the spectrum. To me, that doesn't matter. If you're hearing this and you're hearing the descriptions and the characteristics and you're like, that's me, that's okay. You can self-diagnose. And there are going to be some circles, online that you will find if you're like, oh, well, it's not real if it's self-diagnosed. But know that there are lots of other places, people like me who are like, it doesn't matter, because we know the hurdles that you have to try and get the diagnosis. So it's up to you. Like, do you need it to be official? And
Yeah.
for some people, they need it to be official, like for their families and friends, so that they can start to help them understand what they're struggling with. But outside of that, for me, it's about starting to understand what aspects of your neurodivergence is negatively impacting your life, because it's not all bad.
You're right.
Being different is not bad.
Yeah, but we just kind of lump it all together.
Right.
And feel like we should be, again, quote, normal, and that would make everything better. But there are certain elements that, yeah, you don't need to fix that. Why?
Exactly. And so you look at the things that you're really good at. And I think that, Shauna Lynn, part of why you have so many creatives that you work with is that because those are the people who started to really honor their brain and let their brain like go wild, because that's where creativity comes from, right? It's not like lockdown, it's got to be logic. And so when you see that, but then there's still that other part. Yes, you could be a creative, but you know what? If you want to make money and have a business, you got to do the other things too.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that the other things, that's what really requires the executive function.
Right.
And so there is no, like I said, there's no magic pill. There's no, easy button that you could press. But if you start looking at, here are the executive function skills, these are the ones that I know, like if someone says, plan your day, and you're cringing, you're like, oh gosh, no, I can't do that. That might be a skill that you might want to start working on, like to start looking for tools and strategies that would benefit that skill. And what you'll see is that when you start to work on one skill, it has a ripple out effect, because these skills are totally, intertwined with each other. So if you start getting better at planning, then your time management will start to improve. Your task initiation might start to improve. So that's why one of the freebies that I have for everybody is a quiz. It's like a 10-question quiz. I'm not about testing people and making life difficult.
Right.
It's like 10 questions, right? It's like 10 questions, multiple choice, and you just answer the questions. And at the end, it'll be like, hey, based on these results, it seems like this is your biggest struggle. It might be task initiation or organization. So explain, you'll get feedback like this is what it means, but then I also give you like 3 strategies of like, here are 3 things that you could try to help with this skill. And if you decide to take the quiz, but you're like, but they all sound like me, you don't have to retake the quiz like 4 different times to get all the results. I email you like copies of all of the results so you could peek it, so you could take a peek, because I know that I started when I first launched it, I had people like I could see them like going back like 3 times. I'm like, why are they doing that? And I'm like, oh, they just want to know what the other ones are.
Right. So try different answers.
Right.
Yeah.
So I will email you your results, and then I will give you links to all of the other ones so that you can get all of the strategies for all of them that I have listed there.
Right. Which is awesome. And so, yeah, so we'll give you, we'll make sure that that link is in the show notes. It's fbombcoach.com/bottleneck-quiz. So I know it's a little bit of a mouthful. So we'll make sure that's in the show notes and the resources for everyone, of course, as well. I know one of the things that I talk about with my neurodivergent clients is, and I shouldn't say just with my neurodivergent clients, with all my clients, one of the big things we talk about is outsourcing the things that you're just not good at. Because this is how any successful business is built, is hiring people who are smarter than you, better than you at doing certain things. And one of the challenges is always that we think that no one's going to want to do this crappy job, because I sure as heck don't want to do it. So clearly no one else is going to want to do it. And meanwhile, what you don't understand is there are people out there that thrive on that crappy job that you don't want to do. And so while I can't say you can outsource everything that you want to do. I mean, technically you can, but depending on the type of business that you're running, chances are we're not going to outsource everything. But there are ways to hire the right people, get the right people in the right seats on that bus, and have them help you drive the business forward. One of the biggest things with every one of my clients is always to make sure that we're not, just because something needs to get done doesn't mean you have to do it just because you're the CEO and wearing all the hats. One of the big things I know for neurodivergent is definitely like documenting processes, SOPs. Like, I can't do that. I'm like, cool, don't. Record yourself the next time you're doing it. Let someone else document it, or the recording is good enough too. Like, there are methods to these things that, again, working with someone like yourself who truly understands what the different challenges are, what they look like, and can provide resources for them, I think is so incredibly helpful. Going back to the self-diagnosis element, how does someone kind of differentiate between like, I think I'm just unmotivated versus like, oh, I'm being overloaded, I'm dysregulated. Like, how can they identify? Because I mean, these are probably women who also have kids and a significant other spouse and mortgage payments and soccer pickups and aging parents that they're taking care of. You know what I mean? Like, we're being pulled in a lot of different directions, and some days it just kind of all comes to a head and we're like, that's it, I'm just checking out. But how do we know the difference between just being unmotivated and being overloaded?
Let me talk about the overloaded, the feeling of overwhelm first, because that is like, overwhelm is such a big catch-all for everybody. But when we talk about the brain, one of the things that is helpful to understand, and I'm going to do this, and if you're not watching it on Zoom, you can go to YouTube and look for Dr. Dan Siegel, and he does a video of this. But he created a hand model of the brain, which is just you tuck your thumb inside your fist and fold your fingers over, and that's like what your brain looks like right behind your eyeballs. And that part where your fingers folded over, that's your executive function. That lives in the prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead. Underneath your thumb is your amygdala. That's the emotional part of your brain. And so when you are stressed, when you are angry, when you are overwhelmed, your amygdala takes over and you flip your lid, right? So your fingers shoot up and the amygdala is in charge. And when you're like that, you can't access those skills. You cannot access those executive function skills that you need to do the things that have to be done. That's where the shutting down comes from. That's why you can sit on your phone and scroll TikTok for 2 hours and not do even though you know these other things have to happen. It's right, because you're emotionally dysregulated. And that's not you being lazy. That's your body saying, I can't do this. And your body is saying it because your brain does not differentiate that feeling of overwhelm and stress and being chased by a tiger.
Yep.
To your brain, it's the same level of fear. It is, I need to protect you, and now is not the time to think about your planner or what project you have to do, because we're fighting for, yeah, we're in survival mode.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the first thing, is that I always start there, because that's where most women are. Truly. Like, right, are there times when you're unmotivated because it's something you want to do? Yes, that's a human experience. But I always start with regulate your body. And starting to learn self-regulation tools that work for you. Like we talk a lot about breathing and people are like, I know how to breathe. But we do that because breathing is so universal and it's so easy to do. And we're not talking about 10 minutes. We're not talking about going into a quiet room and meditating and funky poses. We're talking about just stopping and regulating your entire nervous system, because when you do that, when you start to take some deep breaths and you just relax your body a bit, you lower your blood pressure and your heart rate, and you're telling your brain, I am actually safe. And if you
Right.
do that and your body is truly calm, then you should be able to access some of those executive function skills so that you can determine, am I fighting this because there's some other problem, or am I fighting this just because I'm bored?
Right.
I'm not motivated. And if motivation is the issue, then that's an easier one an easier hurdle, because then you just have to look for things to make it interesting, you
Right.
know?
That makes
Like,
sense.
I
Yeah.
have to write an email. Okay, I really hate writing email. Okay, how fast can I do it? Can I do this email, knock out all the information in 4 sentences or less? Now it's
Right.
a
Make it a
challenge,
challenge.
right? And your brain's like, ooh, that's fun. Let's try it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Playing little
So yeah,
games. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like I said, most women, it's the overwhelm piece. You're overloaded. Your nervous system is shot, and you don't even realize it. That's what leads to the burnout. So I always start with like, learn some strategies that feel right for you. So yes, I mean, there are tons of them out there. Yes, breathing is one, but there's the grounding exercises where, 5 things I see, 4 things I can hear, where you kind of do a countdown.
Yep.
Um, find the ones that work for you. Try some of them. And if you're sitting there saying, this feels stupid, okay, that's not the right one for you. Pick a different one. Pick a different one.
But that's exactly it. I know, like it's something that with all of my coaching clients, we dive pretty deep into stress management, because if we can't regulate that element, everything else doesn't fall into place. So you can, for example, change your eating habits and work out every day, but you're still not going to lose weight because your cortisol levels are so high. And so it trickles into, it's not just about the executive function or dysfunction in that case, or about not having regulated emotions or being exhausted. Like there's so many other ways that this plays into your life, and we don't even realize it.
Yep.
And again, it's something that's not talked about often enough. I think there are more voices out there for this subject matter than there ever used to be, which is fantastic, because women like us, of course, are moving the conversations forward, thankfully, but there's still not enough conversations about them to normalize it all. That like this all, having proper stress management techniques means that it doesn't mean you don't get stressed. It means that you can move forward when that overwhelm kicks in at a faster rate than if you didn't have those techniques. So to your point of like, find what works for you. Everyone's going to have different things that help them to reset when they're feeling that overwhelm. And for some, like maybe you need to like step away from whatever the situation is. Literally walk away from it. Leave the room, leave the house, go for a walk, go for a drive, whatever clears your mind. For others, it might just be, I just need to go and lay down for a little while. Maybe you take a quick nap. Like there are things that I think we've told ourselves, like, oh, I can't take a nap in the middle of the day. I'm a professional. Screw that.
Right.
I take naps all the time. You
Well, because
can't
you're
find,
lazy if you do that. You are lazy if you
right.
go and take a nap.
No. And I've started talking so openly about my naps too. When people are like, oh, like I was trying to call you, I'm like, yeah, no, I was taking a nap. Like middle of the day. If I have time in between appointments and I can take a nap, I don't always need a nap, but there are days where I'm like, you know what, a nap is exactly what I would like right now. And I'm going to go take a little nap, snuggle with my kitty cats, and go back to work 20 minutes later. I'm not ashamed of it in the slightest. In fact, I think it's what makes me more productive. It allows me to be able to show up fully present for the next client. So
Absolutely. Because you've learned to listen to yourself. Even if you're
exactly.
not like tired, you're like, I need a break. And the break looks like I'm crawling underneath my weighted blanket and I'm going to snuggle. And,
Exactly.
for other women, their break is going to be, I'm going to, jam some really loud music and I'm going to
Yep.
dance for 5 minutes in my office. And
Yep.
they're going to talk themselves out of that because that's unprofessional. That's not how a business professional runs things. And that's because we've been told by rich white men that that's what it's supposed to be. I mean, ultimately, that's what it is. Like how many different, things we were like, oh, to be really, super professional and richest people on earth, you have to get up at 5 a.m. and you have to go take a nice cold shower and then you have to meditate. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
that's great. You're never going to see me at 5 a.m.
Right.
I am
And
not a morning person.
And this is it's something I talk about actually quite frequently because I am the morning person. I used to be a total night owl. My alarm now goes off at 4:15 every single morning. Well, 5 days a week, I should say. I also still set a slightly later alarm, but not much later on Sundays. And I go for my morning run. And this is a part of what makes me happy, what gives me joy, which is also one of the reasons why sometimes I need a nap in the afternoon because it's been a long day. By the time 4 o'clock hits, I've been awake for 12 hours. So
Yeah, the only way you're seeing me at 4 a.m. is if I'm pulling an all-nighter.
right. And that's the funniest thing is that often I'm out on my morning run. I can tell someone's just coming home from the bar. Like but there's no judgment. I'm not telling other women that you need to get up at the same time that I do. And because so many people are like, well, I want to do what you're doing. Don't do what I'm doing. Figure out what works for you. This is what works for me. And it gives me so much joy. My days go so much better on the days that if I sleep in, my days are always a little off kilter. It deregulates my whole system. Everything feels a little off if I miss my morning run. And these are things that I just know about myself. And this is how I choose to live my life. But I'm not saying that that's what makes sense for everyone. I think the key is, like you said, we got to figure out what makes the most sense for us. Now, if you are someone who does like getting up early and you can't get a workout in, then maybe you do need to get up 30 minutes earlier to get that workout in. Like that there's a big difference between that and telling someone who's not a morning person to go and get up at 4 a.m.
Right,
That's
exactly.
what you have to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And your rhythm of getting up at 4 a.m. to go do a run, like that is what is considered acceptable. Like that's what you're told is the smart thing to do. But for most, I think, neurodivergent people, like their body clocks are not like that. Their body clocks are kind of like more like teenagers. We're like, see me at 1 a.m. and I'm thriving, but don't bother me before 10 a.m., you
Right.
know? And but that's something that is seen as lazy. If I'm
Yeah.
sleeping until 10, that's because, well, how could you possibly be productive? You know what? But I would venture to say, Shauna Lynn, you're probably not awake at midnight.
Definitely not. No. In fact, if you do not even want to try to catch me, so I'm usually in bed between 8 and 9 o'clock in the evening, and that goes for weekends as well. I will push it a little bit if I need to on weekends, but it's got to be a really good reason for me to stay up late, not just a random Saturday night, because it completely throws me off for the
Right.
rest of the week. And you know what ends up happening is I lose the ability to properly form sentences after about 10 o'clock. You don't even want to try to have a conversation with me. I will sound like I'm drunk because my brain it's like, listen, you can stay up, Shauna Lynn, but we're going to go to sleep in here.
Right. Well, because at that point you've been up for 20 hours straight.
Right.
And that's a lot. But it goes back to that, what the outside world views as acceptable. But that's one of the great things about, running your own business is that it doesn't matter what the rest of the world says is acceptable. You get to choose your hours.
Exactly.
If your assistant is a 4 a.m., girly, have at it. Make sure before you take off for the night, go ahead and have that list, emailed to her.
Yeah.
And she should know not to bother you before 10 a.m. because it's not going to happen. You're the boss. You get to decide that. And I think that's why so many neurodivergent people are, find themselves comfortable in the business world, like as entrepreneurs, to be able to do their own thing because they have that flexibility. But then when they start delegating and wanting to hire people, then they kind of start to shrink back, like, oh, but I don't look like they're expecting me to look, kind of thing. I'm like, own it, because it does work for you. It is who you are, and it is a good thing. You know,
Yeah.
you're
No,
you're paying them. They could work around your schedule.
exactly. And I think that, this is a really important thing. And I think this is actually a good place to kind of leave people with too, is we can normalize it in our own head, but there's always going to be that societal pressure to adapt, to fit in. Whether again, we can talk about being authentic all we want, but not everyone feels as comfortable just doing that. So what's maybe some language we can give for these ladies who are in exactly that situation and we're using the example of wanting to sleep till 10 o'clock, but this can show up in numerous different ways. Maybe it's a matter of like, you can only work for an hour at a time and they need to take a 2-hour break. Maybe it's a matter of there are just certain tasks that you don't feel that you're best suited to do. And we don't want to feel like we're coming up short here. We don't want to feel, that we're not all that we're supposed to be as the boss of the business. what's maybe some language that we can arm these ladies with in terms of how to embrace that as opposed to working against it? Because I think that if you're just saying like, oh, well, this is just how I am, that doesn't always feel as clean as it maybe it could when it comes
Right.
out.
And that's a hard thing to do. Like to just say, well, this is just the way I am. Like you have to be really comfortable and confident in owning that and being okay with whatever backlash you get. And I would, without a doubt, most women are not really okay with that. They don't want to deal with that backlash because of any number of reasons, right?
Hmm.
So when you're looking at finding the ways and the systems that work for you, you really do have to reframe how you present it to other people. So it's not, I need to sleep until 10 a.m. It's my workday starts at 10 or at 10:30, whatever time it is. And this is so I can be the most productive and effective, CEO, designer, whatever. Like
Hmm.
you don't say it as like, I have to sleep in. It's like, this is when my day starts. And this
Yes.
is, and this is when I'm most productive. Um, and it's just about reframing that language, no different than if you had a student with an IEP, an individualized education plan, because they were in the special ed program. They have accommodations. All you're doing as the boss of your own company is that you are creating your own accommodations.
Right.
And other people for sure aren't going to get it. I'm not going to lie to you and say, boy, just say it. And that's going to be, no, they're absolutely
Yeah.
going to talk garbage about you behind your back. She's a weird one, man. What's up with
Yeah.
that? Why is it that after she has a call, she closes herself in the office for an hour and a half? Because she's done peopling and now she's overstimulated and she needs to be away from people. Whether or
Yeah.
not you choose to say that doesn't matter. You just block out the time in your schedule. Like I had a call that lasted an hour. Now I'm off. Do not bother me for an hour.
Yeah.
And you get to do that as a boss. If you're not the boss, it makes it a whole lot harder because then you are having to deal with other people and explain to them why you need the accommodations and what
And I
those
love the
accommodations.
term, the accommodations, because I think that just it reframes it in our own mind as well, that that's exactly what these are. These are accommodations, same type of accommodations that you would make. Let's say you had an employee working for you who needed who couldn't see very well. So you're going to make them some accommodations to provide them with devices that are going to dictate things on the screen as opposed to making them read it. Maybe someone needs an ergonomically designed chair or whatever. Like you're going to make those accommodations. This is the same sort of accommodation. I don't mean to be comparing it literally to physical disabilities, because I'm not saying that this is a disability by any means, but it is an accommodation for the exceptions to the things. And I think also framing it with the like lean into the things you do really well, because you all know you do things really well, and why are we focusing on things that we don't do as well? So like let's start with whether if I've got a new employment, like listen, here is where I'm going to absolutely shine. Let me tell you where you are not going to get the best out of me, and this is why you're here. This is why you're leaning on your team. They want to feel as though they're not just an extension of you. They want to feel like they can own their own role. So let them know that, like, listen, you're going to get the best out of me if I don't start my day before 10 a.m. That means that in order for me to be best prepared for a 10 a.m. meeting, you're going to start at 8 a.m. and you're going to do X, Y, and Z before my 10 a.m. meeting, or whatever that looks like. But again,
Mm-hmm.
like make it so that they understand that they are a valuable part of this whole system to make the entire company run well, and they get to fill in the gaps. And you get to be your absolute best at the things that you're best at, and they get to be their absolute best at the things that they're best at. And
Oh,
lean into
without a
those
doubt.
things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always lean into the things that you're good at. And it's okay to own that and not brag on it, but like, yes, this is who I am. This is what I'm really good at. And this is what has gotten me where I am today. Because it is the power of your unique brain that has gotten you where you are. And when you're at the point that you can start to offload those things that you dread and you're not good at, like it just opens up more time and space for you to do more of the things that you are good at, which will take you even further.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, and this goes for anyone who's neurodivergent or not, that the more you lean into the things that you actually enjoy doing, the easier it actually is to do it, because we end up procrastinating on the things that we don't want to do. So the more we can offload those items, the smoother things go. Trust me, every time I find myself stuck on something, like, oh, better be offloading this one soon. Like it's my trigger to, because I'm going to be more productive if I don't have the things that it's a 5 minute task, but took me 20 minutes to do it because I spent 15 minutes trying to figure out how to get out of doing it. Right.
Yep.
So
Yes. Always. Always. So when you're looking at what you can be efficient at, yes, it's like if you're doing something new for your business, you might want to run through it once or twice so that you know what
Sure.
it is, so that when you delegate it, you know that it's being done right, kind of thing. But to be able to say, yeah, I know how to do this, but I don't ever want to do it because in that 20 minutes, you could have done two or three other things that would have been more productive and better for your business than kind of dragging out that 5-minute task that took 20 minutes.
Exactly. So here is your official permission slip for all you ladies listening to do exactly that. Lean into your strengths. I know we've said it before, but I think reframing it when talking about executive function especially helps to really kind of make it land for them. So if someone's listening to this episode today and they want to kind of start in one spot, like what's one takeaway that you hope if they get nothing else out of today's episode, what are you hoping that they will take with them into the week?
The number one thing that I say to everybody is that you are not lazy, stupid, or broken. Say that on repeat over and over and over again to shut out that really, really nasty voice in the back of your head that is always telling you, don't do that because that's lazy. Don't do
Right.
that. That makes you look stupid. Shut that voice up because you are not. You are brilliant, and your brain, as different as it is amazing. So if you walk away with nothing else, walk away with that message.
Love it. Amazing. Shannyn, thank you so much for sharing all of this today. I think that this is exactly what our listeners really needed to hear, and I really appreciate you joining us today.
Well, thank you so very much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, definitely. And as I mentioned, I'm going to make sure to put that bottleneck quiz in the show notes as well. As always, all of our resources are always available in the show notes. And if today's episode has resonated with you, then I hope that you will continue to tune in with us each week. We drop new episodes every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. And please allow us to continue to be a part of your journey. Don't forget to leave us a review or subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, the best way that you can support not only this podcast, but also your fellow women entrepreneurs is share this episode. I guarantee every person listening to this right now, you have got someone in your brain that you're thinking like, oh, that sounds exactly like this person. Send this episode to them. They're going to thank you for it. And of course, we would appreciate it as well. Until next time, everyone, keep thriving.